Of course I can see you, Ifeoma replied. By the way, why are you here alone? Tobenna's ghost was overjoyed. He had found someone who could see him. Once upon a time, in a small village called Umuofia, there lived a young man named Tobenna. Tobenna was kind and handsome, and everyone in the village liked him. He had three friends, Obinna, Obiora, and Ekwe, and a lovely girlfriend named Ada. Tobenna and Ada were very happy together, and they often went for long walks by the river, laughing and talking. But Obinna, Obiora, and Ekwe were not truly Tobenna's friends. They were jealous of him because Ada loved him so much. They wanted Ada for themselves, and their jealousy turned into a terrible plan. One day, they went to the forest to hunt. There they connived, killed, and buried him in the forest. Night came, and Tobenna's family and friends searched everywhere for him. They called out his name and looked in all the places he liked to go, but they couldn't find him. All this while, Tobenna's ghost was wandering the village, trying to tell everyone what had happened, but no one could see or hear him. He felt so helpless and sad. When Tobenna's father went to his friends differently to ask about the whereabouts of Tobenna, they all lied that they saw Tobenna and Ada going to the river to fetch water. Tobenna's father stormed to Ada's house to request the return of his son. Days passed and Tobenna was not found, but Tobenna's ghost kept going to Ada, hoping she would somehow see him. He stood right in front of her and called her name, but Ada couldn't hear him. She sat by the window, crying and wishing Tobenna would come back. Tobenna's heart ached to see her so sad, but there was nothing he could do. One day, as Tobenna's ghost was sitting at the outskirts of the village, a young lady named Ifeoma walked by and greeted him. He didn't respond because he wasn't expecting anyone to see him. Ifeoma stopped and looked directly at him and greeted again, yet no response from him. Tobenna's ghost was still in surprise as Ifeoma walked away, complaining of some people being so rude that they couldn't even answer greetings. It dawned on Tobenna that Ifeoma could see him. The next day, Tobenna waited at the stream when he saw that Ifeoma was going to fetch water. Ifeoma came, carrying a pot to fetch water from the stream. As she walked past Tobenna, she greeted him but yet no response. She stopped and looked directly at him. "It is you again. Why are you so full of yourself that you can't respond to someone's greetings?" Ifeoma said angrily. Tobenna was still in shock that he could only look at Ifeoma in amazement. No one had spoken to him since he became a ghost. Ifeoma tilted her hair and waited. When Tobenna finally realized that she could see him, he felt a spark of hope. "You mean you can see me?" Tobenna asked, his voice trembling. "What type of question is that? Are you not human enough for me to see you?" "Of course I can see you," Ifeoma replied. "By the way, why are you here alone?" Tobenna's ghost was overjoyed. He had found someone who could see him. He apologized for ignoring her and offered to help her to fetch water. Ifeoma agreed on the condition that Tobenna would help her carry the water home. Tobenna smiled and accepted. On their way home, Ifeoma asked him where he came from, as she started seeing him recently in the village. Tobenna told her he was from a neighboring village. They reached the entrance of Ifeoma's house. Tobenna stopped and asked Ifeoma to carry the water home. He promised to visit her again. Tobenna continued to appear to Ifeoma as her friend, and they would often be seen talking together. To anyone else, it looked like Ifeoma was talking to herself. People in the village began to worry about her strange behavior. They whispered among themselves and finally decided to report to Ifeoma's mother, Nkechi. One afternoon, Ifeoma was talking to Tobenna in their compound when her mother caught her. Nkechi saw her daughter gesturing and speaking to thin air. She rushed to her. "Ifeoma, who are you talking to?" Nkechi asked, her voice filled with concern. Ifeoma replied, "Mama, I am talking to Tobenna, my friend." Nkechi's eyes widened in shock and fear. She grabbed Ifeoma's hand and pulled her inside the house. "You must stop this nonsense. People are saying you have gone mad." Tobenna watched them, feeling helpless. Later, he told Ifeoma, "You are the only one who can see me. They are all blind, only you have the eyes that can see me." Ifeoma was scared and confused. She looked at Tobenna, tears filling her eyes. "Why can only me see you? Are you a ghost?" Tobenna nodded sadly. "Yes, Ifeoma. I was murdered by my friends out of jealousy. I need you to help me find justice. Please don't leave me." Ifeoma felt a pang of sympathy for Tobenna. She didn't want to abandon him, but she was also afraid her mother wouldn't let her go to another village. "How can I help you?" she asked. "Please, I will take you to my father," Tobenna pleaded. "Talk to him and tell him what happened to me." It took Ifeoma a few days to gather the courage. When she finally went to Tobenna's village and spoke to his father, Mr. Okoro, he refused to believe her. "A native doctor told me Tobenna is alive," Mr. Okoro said firmly. Ifeoma felt disheartened, but she didn't give up. She visited Mr. Okoro every day, sharing details only Tobenna would know. Finally, after a week, Mr. Okoro agreed to listen. "Show me where my son is buried," he said. Tobenna led Ifeoma to the forest where he was buried. She walked cautiously, following his instructions. When they reached the grave, Tobenna stopped. "This is where they buried me," Tobenna said softly. Ifeoma nodded and went back to Mr. Okoro. "Please come with me to the forest. Your son's grave is there," she said. Mr. Okoro followed Ifeoma to the grave in the forest. She pointed to the spot where Tobenna was buried. "We need to pack sand from here and bring it to your compound," Ifeoma explained. "It's the only way Tobenna can find peace and avenge his death." Mr. Okoro, though skeptical, decided to trust Ifeoma. Mr. Okoro's face was filled with grief and anger. "My poor son," he whispered. They carefully packed the sand from Tobenna's grave and brought it to their compound, just as Ifeoma had instructed. Mr. Okoro stood in the center of his compound and poured the sand onto the ground. With a heavy heart, he made a pronouncement. "Tobenna, my son, rise and take revenge on those who wronged you." As soon as the words left his lips, Tobenna's ghost appeared, stronger and more visible than before. He nodded to his father, then vanished into the village to confront his killers. Obinna, Obiora, and Ekwe were sitting together, trying to act as if nothing was wrong. Suddenly, Tobenna's ghost appeared before them, his eyes burning with anger. "Confess your crime," Tobenna demanded. confessed or faced the consequences. The three friends laughed nervously, trying to dismiss Tobenna's ghost as a figment of their imagination. But Tobenna's ghost was relentless. He haunted their dreams and tortured their minds, showing them visions of the terrible deed they had committed. After days of torment, they could bear it no longer. Desperate and terrified, they ran to the village square and cried out for everyone to hear. We confess, they shouted, drawing the attention of the entire village. In front of all the villagers, Obinna, Obiora, and Ekwe confessed to their crime. They admitted how they had murdered Tobenna out of jealousy and buried him in the forest. The villagers were shocked and outraged. Justice was swiftly served, and the three friends were punished for their heinous acts. Tobenna's ghost watched from the shadows, satisfied that his killers had been apprehended and that justice had been done. His spirit felt a sense of peace, knowing that his family and friends finally knew the truth. As Tobenna's spirit departed, he looked one last time at Ifeoma and smiled. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for giving me justice." With that, Tobenna's ghost faded away, finally at peace. From this story, we learned that true friendship is based on trust and loyalty. Tobenna's story reminds us that jealousy and deceit can destroy even the closest of bonds. It also reminds us that justice will always prevail. No matter how well a crime is hidden, the truth will eventually come to light, and the wrongdoers will face the consequences. And finally, we should try to listen to those who are different. Informan's ability to see Tobenna when no one else could teaches us to pay attention to the unheard and unseen, as they might have important truths to share. This is Umma's story time. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. I am Amarachi Ihoma, the young storyteller.